gentlemen, a very, very good morning to you. Karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe, and Freddie Ndimuli is away for today.
Absolutely. Good morning and welcome. My name is George Marenga, holding the fort for my colleague Fred Ndimuli. Welcome to Morning Cafe. Where are you watching us from?
Oh, yes, I'm usually standing in Rungita quite a lot the way we stand up for this. So, George, this particular week is going to be quite a busy one.
Mambo ni mingi.
Starting off today.
A lot is happening from today all the way to Friday.
Yes.
And we are expecting, of course, especially in the political front, being a democratic country that is, witnessing, it's what some people are saying. We are extending the rubber band of this constitution of ours, We are exploring all the options that exist.
Oh, yes. And the Senate this particular morning starting off, just trying to pick the whole devolution bit of it. It's going to be a similar script, different cast for the Senate as they start hearing the impeachment motion of caricatures Governor MUTAI for today as well as on Tuesday. Yeah. Then coming on Wednesday and Thursday, the impeachment motion for Deputy President Gachagua for senators this week. It's going to be a busy one, and I believe that is what you're going to be discussing with the panel.
Absolutely, and remember, these senators have been told by their Speaker, Amason Kingi, not to attempt to leave town in any way or form. This morning, we shall be speaking to Kipruto Arap Kira. He was a former agriculture CS on State of the Nation. Philip Kise will also be joining us on the panel. He is a leadership and governance expert. Honorable Dr. Mumbingaru, she's an MP. She'll also be joining us on the panel this morning.
Former MP.
Yes, former MP. And then finally, Samuel Pogisio. He is a former majority leader of the Kenya Senate and former ICT minister. Oh, yeah. These are eminent members of our society who have been in the political field, and it is always good to hear what the dons who have been there before the rest have to say, because they're the ones who also witnessed the birth of this constitution.
Most definitely. And also take a look at what has been happening over the weekend. Two leaders were expected in Embu, but the whole diary again changed, and the whole politics of people saying, I leave it to God and to the courts.
Yes.
Wait to see how that will be happening.
Absolutely. Because you did see yesterday, he did say why. One said why they were not able to make it to Embu. And of course, they've not shared the podium in such a long time.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And to matters sports, ladies and gentlemen, it has been not a very kind of busy kind of weekend in matters sports, but then a lot has also been happening. Valerie Mwesh is a sports analyst, as well as Tom Alila, FKF presidential aspirant. The FKF presidential elections are supposed to be happening around the 7th of December, so it is a whole run-up for that. Shotta Boy will be on set. Freda Roach will be joining us live from Kampala. Stick around for all that.
Is this the guy who is saying Hakuna Kulia na Alila?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We'll be looking forward to that.
That is Monday Blitz, your weekly dose of sports. Into the headlines, locally as well as regionally.
Yes.
They say smart people read the Star.
Absolutely.
And the Star for Monday has gone with a very long headline, but tutasoma tu.
The DP race narrows down to Waiguru and Kindiki.
Yes.
For one, it would be a return to cabinet. She started off in the cabinet as a minister. She could be coming back. And for Kindiki, it is also, an elevation, considering he was the second best choice, or rather initially the best choice. Yes. Then, another candidate was settled upon. And, especially on this whole issue, the Kirinyaga governor said to be a favorite as president looks to appease Central. Is a story you can find on page 45. Stanley, it looks like either way, this running mate or deputy presidential seat was to either way go back to Kirinyaga in a way, considering the other side also had, Martha Karua, and then now this way is, the Honorable Anne Waiguru, but you wait to see how that plays out. There's a lot of jostling and lobbying happening, as we can hear and see, especially from the Star.
That is a Star. Daily Nation, they go with a different headline. How Adani's entry saw 56 billion Kenyan shillings rise in health costs. And right now, even as we cross over to other dailies, when you talk about Adani, previously you talk about the airport. Right now you have to specify, are you talking about the airport or into matters energy sector, because now there are two of them. That is
Absolutely.
what the Daily Nation is going with.
And there is someone who has argued that Adani, which animal is this, called Adani? Adani could even be in Kenya as we speak. I surrender all to the judiciary, with a very interesting picture of the deputy president. As we did tell you, he said that he has faith in the courts. But even as he surrenders, there is an issue with the CDF bursaries that have been sent to ghosts, and several members of parliament, 8 of them, are on the spot, led by the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah.
Interesting times. There's a People Daily for you on the Standard. Despite protests, Raila now backs Ruto Adani deal.
Yeah.
Change of tune there.
Change of tune, and some have been asking, what's the deal? What's this whole issue? Why this approval, if you call it, by Raila Odinga? And even as he was saying that, Esther, he got quite emotional as he was speaking about his, colleagues, his friends that he saw during the clamor for multi-party and democracy in the country. You can go, watch that very emotional moment by Raila Odinga.
Speaking of emotions, Chepngetich is on the front page of the Standard and on the back page of even other dailies, and she makes us proud as Kenya. Tunafaa tumpigie makofi leo asubuhi.
Kabisa?
Yes.
Makofi kwake kabisa. She's made Kenya proud.
Oh yes. A huge salute to you.
Yes, and I think you'll be also conversing that in the sports morning blitz as well.
Most definitely. Just take a look at how she broke this whole world record. That is a Standard on matters biashara, how Gen Z protests, finance, bill hitch, hit carry collections.
This an institution that has been tasked with ensuring that it meets the targets, it finances the expenditure and everything else that involves, money in this country. And if they are unable to create or collect the revenues as it were or as expected, it, would lead to such, pointers that we are seeing. The collapse of proposed law created a 344 billion shillings budget hole, and there was also poor performance due to private sector slowdown. And we wait to see how we're still in the second quarter of the financial year, first or second quarter of the financial year. We to see how they will be able to achieve their targets.
Oh yes. As a business daily, let's tuangaze gazeti la Taifa Leo kabla tuvuke boda. Nasema farasi wabaki wawili, wameweka chapisha pale picha ya waziri wa masuala ya usalama Profesa Kithure Kindiki pamoja na waziri mkuu wa mawaziri Musalia Mudavadi pale.
So kinachobaki kuwa kuu ni kwamba Kindiki amesalia kuwa ambaye ndiye anaonekana kuwa ndiye anapendekezwa sana, manake wengine wanaripoti kwamba ni yeye na Waiguru. Sasa ni Mudavadi na Kindiki. Tutasubiri kuna ni nani ambaye atabaki kuwa farasi wa mwisho.
Kuna farasi na kuna punda. Yes. Nani farasi, nani punda? Let's cross over to regional matters. This is the front page of Daily Monitor, the cleanest papers regionally. They say 2025 oil date slips again. So in a nutshell, and they're asking, moving target or a mirage. For the 5th time, the promised commercial oil production date is set to move, this time to the back end of 2026, with 2027 looming like a dark cloud thanks to the troublesome financing for the East Africa crude oil pipeline. And this conversation has been going on Uganda importing oil into the country, and the kind of channels they're going to be using. Some months ago, so the alliance between Uganda and Kenya resume, and they're able to kusema wache mafuta ipitie Mombasa port. But then also Tanzania is big on this, so wait to see how this conversation is going to go about.
And that's, you can find on page 26 and 27 of the Daily Monitor.
Yes. Still in Uganda, ladies and gentlemen, this is the front page of New Vision. Wasema sacked KCCA bosses summoned. The CID once said the trio to answer queries of tragedy. Maswala ya Uganda pale. Where was Museveni? He's still wearing masks.
And together with the First Lady, Janet, and someone has been asking, why are they still wearing masks? They also hosted a delegation from the government of Finland, and they said the Finns had to adopt. Whenever you visit Uganda, you have to wear a mask. And someone was questioning why masks way into 2024.
So ukijua if you're going on a trip to Museveni,
Yes.
lazima ukuwe umebeba
Barakoa.
stock of masks just in case.
Na yeye amebaki kuvaa the KN95. Do you remember how they used to be called?
I know. If you're seeing this around town, you're very chic.
You're very, yes, and you're very cautious.
This is in Uganda.
Yeah.
Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, George.
Tanzania, Msekwa asimulia ya kukumbukwa. And so, miaka 25 bila Nyerere, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, mwanzilishi wa taifa hilo, aeleza jinsi Mwalimu Nyerere alivyojitoa kuwatumikia wananchi, ugumu aliopitia kabla ya vita dhidi ya Uganda. Wachambuzi waeleza Tanzania aliyoyacha na ilivyo sasa. A lot is happening in East Africa's, largest nation by size, and that is being led by the first lady, but the first woman ever in that country, and we wait to see how they will be able to navigate the political scene with the elections coming up next year.
Yes, and actually they're going to be having some elections next month,
yes,
and then of the national elections next year.
Next year, yeah.
Mwananchi is dedicated for this particular day, Nyerere, just kumkumbuka
Nyerere.
The same for the citizen.
The same for the citizen, looking back at a quarter century without Mwalimu. It seems they're having an emotional, nostalgic moment in Tanzania.
Yes.
A quarter of a century.
They're marking 25 years since Mwalimu Nyerere's death, and this the Tanzania will be reflecting the values and principles he embodies. And in an exclusive interview, this paper, respected academic Issa Shivji looks back at what Mwalimu stood for as head of state after his retirement.
Ideally, someone who was 25 years by the time Mwalimu was, died, is now 50.
Yes.
So they have been able to see the transition, and how he left. And also, Samia Suluhu Hassan wants the revenue collection in mining improved. That story is on page 2. That you can be able to find as to why Mwalimu, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan wants the revenue collection on mining improved. Stanley,
right.
Where do we move next?
Those are the local dailies as well as regional dailies. We'll be back to take a look at the local dailies. Right now, though, let's take a look at the weather. Now, leo tuanze Kericho, because the political temperatures in Kericho today are going to be very, very hot.
Yeah, that's a good one, Stanley.
Is that going to be the same for the weather?
Yeah.
From midday hadi uko majioni, you really have to need your umbrella.
Yes.
Because
they'll need to weather the storm.
Yes.
That will be coming as their matter is now before the Senate later on today, and we'll be waiting to see, because it's a bit cold, and
7.6 millimeters.
Yes.
That goes to show how much it's going to be raining today.
Highs of 24, lows of 15.
Yes.
And, all the way, especially during the day. Where next do we go?
That is in Kericho. Let's take a look at the western region in Vihiga.
Yes.
17. That's going to be cloudy today, George.
Yeah, it's going to be a cloudy day in Vihiga County, the home of one of our colleagues around here.
Yes.
And he tells us he's looking forward to travel to Shags and see whether the weather will remain the same.
Hivyo ndio maneno ya Vihiga inakaa. Tuangalie Mombasa, watu wa kule pwani.
Kule pwani.
County 001.
Yes.
24 degrees Celsius right now. Some light showers expected during the mid-morning hours. And then after that, they call it a holiday weather. Highs of about 29 degrees Celsius.
By the way, have guys started going for holiday? They'll wait to go until December is here.
It's about 70-something days to Christmas.
Yes.
We had already begun the countdown. I've forgotten the specific days, but it's about 70-something days to Christmas.
Yeah.
We continue that countdown because inafikanga some 15 days, alafu mnashtuka, oh, by the way, Christmas is coming.
Christmas is already here.
Let's take a look at Kiambu into the central region. Right now it's 14, it's a bit cloudy.
Yeah.
But then after around 10 a.m., you're going to be receiving as high as 27 degrees. So no pressure.
With some likelihood for some showers coming into the weekend.
Yes.
And early next week.
And finally,
in the capital, Nairobi, 047.
They say the city under the sun.
Yes. So it's now at, I think, similar weather to Kiambu as well. Lows of 14, highs of 27. You might want to look for your umbrella here and there, and as you weather the cold, and as we look forward to seeing what is happening also in the political front, will it be cold for some politicians? Will it be warm for them as well?
Oh yes, this particular weather is interesting even for you. Utahitaji umbrella or not?
Yeah.
Then also speaking of the same, what is going to be happening in our news diary, in our news bulletins. Yeah. First off, into matters sports. Yes. Tuanze na sports before we come to other matters. Today in Uganda is going to be a revenge mission for Harambee Stars as they face Cameroon. In Uganda, why are they playing in Uganda? Well, we don't have a stadium really. Nyayo Stadium as well as Kasarani Stadium is being renovated. That's why they're playing there. Yeah. On Friday, they were beaten 4-1. So wait to see how this one is going to turn out.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed. And also, that is in Uganda. Do you come locally?
Yes. So in Kenya, we're going to be having the KDF Day, Kenya Defense Forces Day, and stick around right here. At around 9 a.m. we're going to be beaming live pictures for you. So stick around right here. The home of untold stories. And the Commander-in-Chief, the President, is expected to attend. Many have asked, what is KDF Day about, by the way? I mean, do you even know, what contingents you have? Do you know how many forces you have? Do you know why this time it's being held in Thika? You can stand by for that. Our very own Moige William is on that bit. He'll be bringing us live coverage to be able to understand what is KDF Day all about. And by the way, it's usually held in October to honor our servicemen and women as you look at the impact that they make, as we look at the, protection of our country and even the families, because they usually also come into play on such a day. Something else to stick around for today, Kericho Governor is expected to appear before the Senate, this plus the members of the County Assembly. So first off, we're going to be seeing the opening statements, and then for today, the MCAs will be presenting their evidence at around noon for about 3 hours, and then later on we're going to be having cross-examination. And then tomorrow is really again the big day for Eric MUTAI. He's also going to be presenting his evidence before the Senate plenary. Wait to see how this is going to be happening. But then, don't worry, we're going to be having these live pictures just for you. Yes. Something else also happening today. Remember the whole Tana River interclan clashes that are happening, which are not really seen on most of these front pages. But then this particular interclan clashes have seen at least 14 people lose their lives over the recent weeks. Now the National Cohesion and Integration Commission is going to be grilling a couple of Tana River leaders, about 5 of them today. We're going to be telling you why this is important for you in our subsequent bulletin. That is all for the diary. Right now, though, let's take a look at Today in History.
Today in History. On October 14th, 1978, Daniel Arap Moi officially became the President of Kenya after being elected as the head of the Kenya African National Union, KANU, and designated as its sole presidential nominee. Moi took over leadership following the death of Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's first president, and continued to consolidate his position during this period. His presidency marked the beginning of a new era in Kenya's political landscape as he transitioned the country towards a more centralized and authoritarian governance style.
Time now for an in-depth review of these newspapers and the headlines and the stories inside here. Yes. On the Star, they say smart people read the Star.
With a very interesting headline today.
Yes.
And they're pretty much spilling the beans on, who is the likely, most likely candidate, especially, even as Ruto and Gachagua face off, but on different forums yesterday, both on the pulpit, but in different locations.
They say Deputy President race narrows down to Waiguru and Kindiki. Kirinyaga governor said to be a favorite as president looks to appease the central. Have this coverage on page 4 and 5. And on page 5, I like how the Star has illustrated the profiles for Interior CS Kithure Kindiki as well as Governor Anne Waiguru, saying for Kindiki, born 1972, giving a whole list how he was a law lecturer at UN, elected Tharaka-Nithi senator, again senator majority leader, re-elected under the Senate deputy speaker post, and in 2022 abandoned selective contests. The same year appointed cabinet secretary for interior. 2 years later, reappointed as CS post Gen Z protests. For Anoi Guru, born a year before Kindiki, by the way. Interesting. So she's a year older than Kindiki. Has a degree in agriculture and home economics. 2013 appointed devolution planning CS. 2016 resigns under a cloud of corruption allegations. In 2017 elected Kirinyaga governor. 2 years later she survives an impeachment in the Senate, and some years later re-elected as governor, wins Council of Governors chair election, which a couple of weeks ago she resigned. Yes, that is the profile of these two leaders, which the Star decided.
Yes.
This might be just the two people who are might just be taking this deputy president post.
Yeah. And for once, they could be, the two candidates, would be, rather the two prospects, if, the DP Gachagua is impeached, could be younger than the president.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
The Star on the front page has also given a comparison of these two leaders reading a Bible. That really communicates a lot there.
Yeah.
The Ruto maintained silence on Gachagua, explains and skipping Embu service.
Yes, and he, started by issuing, when he went to AIC Milimani for the 30th anniversary celebrations, he explained that there was a clash in his diary. And, there's someone who asked, so who is this that was mismanaging the diary of the president? Because it's a very, very critical diary. But he did explain yesterday as to why he missed that event in Embu. And perhaps it would have given them an option to share a podium once again, but they haven't done so in a while. And of course, our panelists will be here to be able to debunk what all this means, for these specific incidents that we are seeing across the country.
Yes. On the bottom scroll of the Star, George, anytime you see the word auditor, you always anticipate it's going to be something, a financial mess. And true to that, they say pension billions, auditors uncover financial mess. Other highlights on matters health, Kemri tests new kit for easier diagnosis. Into matters education, MPs lament over 1 million kids out of school in NEP, that is the Northeastern Parliamentary Group. Yes. Also congratulate Chepngetich for smashing the world record with the historic 2 hours and 10 minutes. It is on the back page. That is the standard for you. To the Daily Nation? Daily
Nation, absolutely. Their headline goes with how Adani's entry saw 56 billion shillings rise in health system cost. That's a story that you will find in the Daily Nation. And in January, or rather, that comes with Raila defending the Adani deal. And some 15 services from the tender documents, it so claims that from 2.1 billion shillings to 2.9 billion shillings between January 2024 and May 2024. This rise, who is Adani? What is this Adani? And, why we're seeing the increase in up to 56 billion shillings rise of costs in the health system sector. And, yesterday it was very interesting to see Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, coming to their defense. Yes. And also there is a tribute, the Princess Julie, Dunia Mbaya hitmaker, Dunia Mbaya, you see. And, she passed away, and there was a hitmaker, a tribute for the hitmaker who drove the HIV/AIDS message home. The Benga songbird Princess Julie breathed her last on Saturday, but her song helped save lives by warning people to be cautious and change lifestyles that expose them to infections.
She rest in peace.
Yeah, but they've also not shied away from the impeachment. It's a make or break week for Gachagua in the battle to save his job. The deputy president, who has remained defiant despite the political wave facing him, expressed confidence that, quote, the will of the people cannot be overturned by a few representatives. That is on page 4. And staying on that matter, the DP has, for an interesting, turn of events, placed his faith on the judiciary. And of course, we've seen it's not the first time that, the political class is either hounding or going after the judiciary or even praising them, and you expect to see
Right now, the tables have turned.
Yeah, the tables have turned, and for someone who had criticized a judicial member in the past, it's they were quite interesting to be able to. It was quite interesting to be able to hear that he has now faith in the courts, and he defended why he went after that judge. But then he said he followed the legal options.
All right.
Yes.
This goes to show the kind of anticipation we're going to be seeing on Wednesday as well as Thursday, and what the Deputy President as well as the National Assembly, Mwengi Mutusa, is going to be telling the members of the Senate.
Even as MUTAI has his day, and his date with the Senate, which sits as a court, precisely between today and tomorrow.
Speaking of judiciary, I surrender all to the judiciary. And they have this famous photo of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, probably facing the mountain. I think he was on one of his walks.
Yes,
this should be last year.
Yes, it should be last year when he started his morning walks, and he was facing the mountain, dedicating his mornings and the mountain to God. Yeah, and it's an interesting picture that has even made stickers and memes around. But this time, he's surrendering, to the judiciary.
And they say probably resigned to possibility that a Senate might endorse his removal. Impeached DP signals court action. But we also saw this when on that Monday evening when he was giving his press briefing, what he was talking about how he is already eyeing the judiciary.
Yes.
Rather signaling that for him it's a done deal, and he's muscling his efforts just for the judiciary and not really for the National Assembly as well as for the Senate. So wait to see, even for his counsel, the kind of even evidence, in bulk that they're going to be having in front of the now 6 panel of the judiciary as well, for the Supreme Court,
Supreme Court.
Yes.
And we'll be waiting to see, there's been this debate, Stanley, over whether he has really legal options and whether the Constitution is open or speaks about legal options after an impeachment, especially of a deputy president. Will this apply? Of course, it's the first time we are seeing this. Previously, and we did see with Martin Wambora after the impeachment in the Senate, he did go to the courts. That's the same case that is happening to Kawira Mwangaza. And so we're waiting to see how, if these are legal options. And after all, the place that they would be expected to share a podium is Monday next week, which will be, in fact, Sunday, which will be Mashujadi.
Yes.
So we can wait to see what happens.
How that protocol will be. But then, interesting, George, even for the viewer today, having Samuel Pogisio, he was a former Senate Majority Leader. So he understands the intrigues of what happens in the Senate.
Absolutely.
Many people term the Senate as the upper house, gentlemen and ladies who have a particular decorum. For Samuel Pogisio, what does this mean?
What does this mean?
How different is the National Assembly as well as the Senate? How do they debate some of these motions with a sober kind of mind? What does that even mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really curious from Pogisio.
Yeah, to be able to understand the intrigues as we look forward to seeing what the week looks like. And the Standard is reporting on, despite protests, Raila now backs Ruto Adani deal. And we did see the entry of his lieutenants into government. In fact, one of his lieutenants is now in the energy sector, the Honorable Opiyo Wandayi. And it was quite interesting to hear the change of tune for the former Prime Minister, who is now backing the Ruto Adani deal. It is without doubt that, many have argued that it is without doubt that the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport needs revamp. But it is the means that would end up justifying the end.
Right.
As we wind up.
Because of time, let's take a look at, because I know you'll be taking a look at this other dailies in depth during the State of the Nation. Let's take a look at the caricatures. This is the cartoon on Daily Nation, Iga's take, and they have a gentleman sweeping under the table of Deputy President, and he's using
Bunge cleaning services.
And kuna mwanaume ameanguka pale chini. Someone has just fallen there, sweeping under the rug, perhaps. That is a Daily Nation. On People Daily, this is Tanu's take. Have a couple of people.
This should be what's happening in the National Assembly. Yes, so, you know, you remember they were saying Gachagua must go home, impeach Gachagua kwenda kabisa, Gachagua must leave today. And then
the common Wananchi saying,
yes,
united against Gachagua. When are they going to unite against corruption and poverty?
Yeah.
And finally, on the Standard, Gamzo's take. This
Yes.
gentleman, this is the National Assembly.
Yes.
He's wearing that tie, that pin. And how do you call this game? They have
numbers.
this particular bits, Rigiji MPs falling.
Yes.
Well, those are the cartoons. And finally, let's take a look at the traffic.
Yeah.
Nujue how things are going to be looking like.
It is 6:30.
Yes.
You know, of course, they've started, you know, viewers have started going to work, running errands around. Let's start with perhaps, you know, Mombasa Road.
Yes, this is Mombasa Road.
Yeah.
Way back from Lolongo, getting into town. Things are looking clear, by the way. From imeanza kushikana hapa, this should be Thika Road.
Thika Road, yeah.
Just zoom in for you. This should be Thika Road before you get into Muthaiga roundabout and even past as you're heading into town.
Town, yeah.
Imeanza kushikana bumper to bumper. So if you're there and you had a very early Monday morning interview, make sure umetoka kwa nyumba as early as now. Another road, George?
Another road, the expressway is a bit red here, as you know,
This should be Wayaku.
Yeah, Wayaku way rather. And you know, those who are with this, it therefore means that the expressway begins to get, you know, some, you know, traffic as well on the exits and on the entry. I did see another place that was on the red earlier on towards, but I think it's cleared up.
Should be here, yes. Jogoo Road.
Jogoo Road.
On your way to...
The usual culprit.
Yes, on your way to town.
Yeah.
From Makadara all the way. Utakuwa unapatana na some bits and pieces of red. That means that you're going to be using that route. Kindly, anza kutoka mapema.
And a bit of Ngong Road.
Yes.
Yeah, towards Upper Hill was red, and then now is amber. You know, of course, the roads are beginning, you know, the vehicles are out. You can choose wisely, decide wisely on how to move around the city as you look forward to moving around and, you know, getting to your destination in good time.
Right. Yeah. That is the traffic for you. Keep it right here. But later on, after this particular short break, we're going to be having a gentleman and a lady who understand the Kenyan political scene. They have been there, they have seen it all. They will be breaking it down for you.
And what a time to have this very important conversation on State of the Nation. Where are we exactly? What are the options for everybody? What is all this jostling about? Kipruto Arap Kira is already here. Philip Kesia as well. Honorable Dr. Mumbingaro, as well as Samuel Pugisho, our eminent guests, our panelists, will be able to debunk, you know, what this means, especially looking at the week that is ahead of us. Right away from today all the way to Friday. And then 2 days later will be Mashujade. So we'll be expecting to see who graces the event, and the event of this week will dictate what we will see
on Sunday. I think the government should just have this whole week as a public. We always have a public holiday.
Public holiday.
A public holy week.
Yes, public week.
Yes.
To be able to just rest and see, you know, because Kenyans are like this. Everyone is watching the TV like this.
Watching and then just having popcorns there. This conversation is coming up after this short break. 22047 is our SMS number. 0793 267 279 is our WhatsApp number. Weka remote hapo chini, usiende mbali. We'll be back in a few.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips and the other one
Welcome back. You're watching The Morning Cafe. My name is George Maringa, holding the fort for my colleague Fred Indimuli. Time now for State of the Nation. A lot is happening in the political scene, and especially this morning, leading all the way to Friday this week, is going to be a busy week, especially on the political front. And that's why this morning we bring you the State of the Nation. And to further debunk this, I'm joined by our esteemed guests, and I'll begin to my immediate right, the only lady on the panel. Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Mumbingaru, for joining us. Karibu sana.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Samuel Pogisho, former Senate Majority Leader and former ICT Minister.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana. Philip Kesia, karibu sana. Welcome to the Morning Cafe. And finally, Kipruto Arab Kiro, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Good morning, George.
Good morning to you. And I'll begin with you, and ma'am, for purposes of the issues that we are seeing, and a part of the headlines and we are seeing is that the Honorable Raila Odinga has had a change of tune and backed the Adani deal, the Ruto Adani deal, whereas it is obvious that the airport needs an infrastructure boost, a facelift. Why do you think this backing up came right now?
George, it's a difficult question.
Yes.
And sometimes I do encourage the fourth estate to look for my boss.
Yeah.
He's very accessible.
Sometimes.
Not sometimes. I know he is accessible. And you can ask him why the change of heart. But I want to mention 2 or 3 things that has happened before, and then there was uproar, and later on we all enjoy those facilities. He spoke yesterday, and therefore I haven't had time to talk to him. Sometimes it's not a telephone conversation.
Okay.
You need a 10 minutes to know why the change of heart. And in my reflection, I remembered the thicker dual carriage before it became the superhighway. In the first regime of the former late President Mwai Kibaki. And when the buildings started coming down, especially on Thika Road, churches and commercial buildings, supermarkets, I remember the many things that were talked about. And he had even to leave the Ministry of Roads, if you remember at some time. I don't know whether you are you were born or you...
Yes, I was.
So, and the project stalled for some time. And then in the second term of the Kibaki regime, it was picked up again. And that I had had time to have an explanation.
Yes.
Of why it was hostile the first term, and now why all of us who use the
Thika superhighway,
the Thika superhighway, and even to the extension of having it dualized, we appreciate today. I remember the story of SGR. It also had its issues. They are not sorted out. We still know some things that are difficult to explain, but it has turned out to be a good thing. So I don't know the reason why, but through what has the previous change of heart like that one. I know I will meet him, and he's not mean with time.
Yes.
I will understand. Next time you ask me about that,
Yeah.
I will be better prepared.
You'll be better prepared.
To know why.
Mheshimiwa Pogisho, when you look at,
But I've received very tough messages that I should send to him. Some of them I can't even discuss with him, so I've just forwarded them as they are.
As they are.
Yeah.
And has he responded?
He does respond.
He does respond.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, I can see the gentlemen are, smiling and chuckling. Mheshimiwa Pogisho, when you look at, the backing up of, and, reacting, of course, to what Mheshimiwa said here, the backing up of the Adani deal and the other faces of opposition like Kalonzo who have had, who have maintained issues and, are poking this deal. What do you make of this change of heart, if you could call it?
Well, George, thank you very much, and good morning. We have our resident consultant when it comes to matters very close to the party leader. I'm between two of them, two members here who are very strong members of the party.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it came as a surprise to everyone that the person whom we trust to be the leader of the opposition, literally in this country, has come out and strongly supported the Adani deal. Very strongly, making it look like he was involved from the very beginning. Because the details that the former Prime Minister has come up with is very, very supportive of the takeover. And very strongly, actually, sometimes stronger than I think the government proponents. So we have received, people were shocked about what then is the position vis-a-vis our democracy. What's going to happen to our democracy? Was this a party position? Is this just the former Prime Minister alone? Is this an ODM position? Because now it will be very difficult to answer that question.
Yes.
We'd like to know if it is him as a person. Of course, I do believe that as a newfound friendship between the former Prime Minister and the President, and I'm sure that they decided to help each other on this whole thing, weigh in on all these things. But it comes as a very difficult decision for supporters of the former Prime Minister. The people who had kind of hoped that he would challenge, because I think that's a general position, would have hoped that he would have challenged the whole takeover of the airport and so on. Notwithstanding the fact that he's entitled to his opinion, that's not what we thought or expected. I mean, he's entitled to make a decision like that, but should clarify whether that's a personal position, a party position, and even give reasons why. I mean, the reasons given are very commercial, very different from a very well articulated decision. It's just comparing, saying this is what has happened, he has done this everywhere, promotion, literally promotion. So I do hope that the messages which have gone to the former Prime Minister, which are many, a lot of people opposing it and wondering what he's doing, that he should come out again and clarify exactly what it is, what's happening. Is it now clear that he has moved completely to that side?
Okay, absolutely. Let's get more context, from the story before you come to the rest of the panelists. On that specific story, why Raila defended Adani, the press conference that he held yesterday.
Former Prime Minister and Kenya's AUC candidate Raila Odinga defended the deal, terming Adani company as a reputable company. Odinga saying that the nation will gain in a big way from the planned lease.
That this is a reputable company, in my knowledge. This company actually has done very many PPP projects. I mentioned that we visited India, the invitation of then Chief Minister of State of Gujarat, Narendra Modi. And he introduced us to several Indian conglomerates.
Speaking in Mombasa Sunday, the ODM party leader stated that public-private partnerships (PPP) were necessary due to Kenya's financial crisis.
The interest of protecting the principle and framework of PPPs and potential investors, we have a responsibility to ensure our processes are transparent, cost-effective, and accord equal opportunity to all would-be investors in line with the PPP's Act.
Further demonstrating what the Adani Group was capable of given the correct conditions, Raila mentioned a number of projects in Mumbai and Gujarat in India. Raila revealed the Adani Group's interest in investing in Kenya dated back to 2010, but was hindered by the lack of a suitable legal framework for public-private partnerships, citing a prior discussion with Indian government officials.
Otherwise, you're likely to try to condemn very reputable companies. As you see stories like Adani Gate. Adani company, conglomerate is worth over $200 billion. It cannot be an Adani Gate. Deal with issues as they are. If some people have made mistakes, let them own up that they made some mistakes. But do not begin to condemn innocent companies who are basically doing a normal commercial transactions.
This as Azimio la Umoja leader Kalonzo Musyoka announced plans to file a lawsuit next week to stop President William Ruto's government from awarding the deal to Adani Group.
In the case of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, this is a $236 billion 30-year deal, allegedly to upgrade the airport, which we have challenged in court.
The deal, according to Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum Opiyo Wandayi, is to address Kenya's frequent power outages and guarantee more dependable access to electricity in order to support the nation's expanding economy and industrial goals. The agreement calls for the development of Kenya's busiest airport, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, as well as the installation of power transmission lines. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Kisia, I've seen you, pondering and reflecting and looking at the story that was produced by Mike Kagwango. When you look at, on one hand, Raila Odinga is supporting this; he's thrown his weight around behind it. On the other, he's the other Azimio principle is saying he'll head to court. In such a position, you would expect that there would be some sort of uniformity or silence altogether. But this one, each is, pulling towards their end.
George, I am also shocked in the change of events, just like most Kenyans are. And respectfully, I don't agree with my party leader on this particular matter.
Okay.
I'm not going to be apologetic like my sister. What Kenyans are saying is that they want modernized infrastructure. They are looking forward to having world-class infrastructure because that is captured in our aspirations through Vision 2030. All these things we're talking about are captured in Vision 2030. So there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, in inviting partners to roll out projects through the PPP model. That is very much in order. So nobody is opposed to modernization. Nobody is opposed to expansion and upgrade because that is our aspiration. But what Kenyans are saying is that can these things be done in a more transparent, accountable, and open manner? From where most of the Kenyans are sitting, this thing is shrouded in mystique. It is thinking of corruption. They have not taken time to explain why Adani? Why Adani? When we know of other places like Middle East, in particular, Abu Dhabi, we have Dubai, we have Singapore, we have Malaysia, We have China, who also have capacity to roll out such projects on PPP. The big question is, why then Adani? Why is everybody fighting for this thing called Adani? Yes, there are projects which we are told have been rolled out successfully in Mumbai and Gujarati, but there are many other cases we know of where they have totally failed. Some cases are even in court. So from where I sit, George, I'm so sad that my party leader can be led into a suicide mission that may end his stellar career in politics at a very low. It is most unfortunate. I think he needs to reflect and request for more details. I would have expected my party leader to say, listen, I support it. And he has mentioned the PPP laws. And I can tell you I'm one of the people who caused the change of the PPP laws. Because when we wanted to roll out a city council of Nairobi that time, affordable housing, solid waste management, public transport, we said we didn't have money as city council. And we said the only way we can roll out these beautiful projects was through PPP. And at that time, of course, we all agreed that there was need to relook at that act so that it is favorable to the investor, but also it doesn't, it is not to the disadvantage of Kenyans or for Kenya. Therefore, this particular thing called Adani, where everybody is fighting for Adani, now joined by my party leader, I can tell you, George, this will not end well. Okay?
Okay.
He should have maybe made a recommendation to open up the matter. And this thing, from start to end, if it is done correctly, without interest, some mercenary interest, if it is done correctly, this is a process that we can complete in 6 months and let the best company win. But when you're pushing for a particular company and we don't understand why, and you're not telling us why, and you are telling us it is going to cost us 236 billion shillings, which is about 7-8 billion per year. You are telling us we can't fund it. I can tell you from where I'm sitting, we as Kenyans can fund this project. How can we fund it? In his own admission, this administration has already told us that they lose 3 billion through corruption. The previous one was losing 2 billion. They're losing 3 billion. That is almost 1 trillion shillings lost through corruption. So we are looking for only 236 billion shillings. If we dealt with the issue called corruption, we have money to finance public health, we have money, universal health care, we have money to fund our airports, we have money to fund all the infrastructure projects we have in 1 year. We can, in one bullet, George, in one bullet, all these things we're talking about can be dealt with. But the thing is there anybody who is interested? People are not talking about corruption, they are just talking about PPP. People are not talking about corruption, they are talking about borrowing. Why can't we deal with the issue of corruption, arrest that corruption, and we find sufficient resources to deal with these projects?
Kipruto, when you look at the backing up coming, in the same week that the Kenya Airports Authority announced that Terminal 1E has been closed for renovations, do you think that Adani has already made its way to Kenya and started this thing?
Well, George, I'm worried. Worried in the sense that elections have lost meaning. For the first time, I voted for Raila in the last general election because I thought he would provide hope. Now that he's gone to bed with the administration of the day, I wonder why we should be voting at all. Why there is need for us to vote when leaders seem to be exchanging their deals at their level and making us look so irrelevant in terms of their support from us and also the support for the alternative from the same aspect. When we go to the issue of Adani, it is known world over that Adani has created some good infrastructure somewhere, but they have also created a lot of trouble in many other parts of the world, including the ouster of one of the prime ministers, I think it's Bangladesh, where she had to be airlifted out of her country because of Adani deals. What we know is that during our tenure as ministers during Kibaki 1, certain proposal was given to us that we need independent power producers for purposes of ensuring that there is a bit of support when power generation is low because of rains or lack of rains for that matter.
Okay.
But what we came to realize is that they were more expensive than the normal generation of electricity, hydro or thermal through the conventional means. Now, what we know about Adani is that in some countries where they have done the same about power production, the bills have been so high to the ordinary citizens. And therefore, Prime Minister Raila Odinga is telling us, prepare yourself for the high bills that will come to our dockets in the next couple of months or so. And it is very, very discouraging for one to realize that all that we went through in the last general election was just a circus. A circus in the sense that the opposition then and the person dealing with government today are two different individuals. My take is that let us revisit the Constitution so that in future, if you run on a separate ticket, you don't deal with government for 5 years. That's the only way we can visit democracy to our country. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
Let's move to the itinerary of the Senate. And Mheshimiwa Pogisho, I'll begin with you. When we look at the impeachment of Kericho governor, the itinerary is quite heavy for Senate this week, and it's beginning today, tomorrow. In terms of this impeachment, do we even understand as a country why we need to impeach someone? Or are we, as county members of county assemblies, because there have been several attempts, because it starts in the county assembly first before it goes to the Senate. Do you think that the legislators, the representatives, both in national and devolved governments, understand what impeachment is?
Thank you, George. I think it's a very serious matter when we come to discuss impeachment. The Senate deals with impeachment of the devolved counties, the counties, and mostly governors. And now, for the first time, they're going to be involved in impeaching a deputy president and also the president of the country. And sometimes we think impeachment is just one of the exercises in law or in lawmaking, but it's a very serious termination, attempt to terminate somebody's elected person's term. And in this case, we've simplified it so much and setting a new law so that, in fact, as they say, this is going to be an entrapment of sorts. You deal with one man, but you're setting the rules for the next person. And you're setting the bar for the next person. And it's going to make it easier now for Kenyans to demand equal treatment whenever everybody is impeached. So for the first time, the Senate is going to be faced with a difficult decision that they have to make. First of all, when we're impeaching the governor, you normally vote in delegations, only 47 of them. You vote in delegations. But in this one now, everybody votes. And all senators vote, all 67 of them vote. And the time is, this is going to be like a trial chamber. For the first time in this impeachment process, the last house did not have to sit as a chamber, as a trial chamber, because they just voted as a block. They voted for everything at go, without looking at the particulars, without looking at individual counts. In the Senate, that's why it's taking 3 days, whatever number of days they have to take, because they will now have to go count by count and find one count to be substantiated. If you find that, then it's done. And so I do know that it's going to be a difficult moment for the Speaker of the Senate. It's going to be a difficult moment for senators. Everybody's having hopes that the Senate will not behave as a chorus, as a choir. That the Senate will at least look like they are the upper house, that they are going to look at things very objectively and possibly independently, be able to vote independently. And that's, I'm just saying possibly because I know how parties vote in these things. And coalitions are there, and sometimes you don't know whether you can actually be independent in this country anymore if you are in parliament. Your party can just decide we're going this way, and you vote. And that's what happened in the last impeachment process in the National Assembly. So yes, this week is going to be very busy, and it's going to be very tough. Of course, the courts are already dealing with this matter. So you have interpretations from the court about the last impeachment going on, and so anything can happen between the 3 days before Wednesday. We never know what the rulings are going to be from the courts. But I do hope that the hope of anybody who's being impeached under Article 150, or even under the Article 144, 145, all these are aimed at making sure that we do not rush to remove a deputy president. We do not rush to remove anybody of that caliber. It was intended, I don't think it was intended for in the Constitution, for it to be easy, for us to just say, okay, must go, or something like that. That's not how you remove a president or deputy president. It was either he was unhealthy or could not hold his office because of physical or mental health. It was either by death or by impeachment. And the impeachment process is supposed to protect that whole thing, so it's not as cheap, it's not easy to remove. Because when we make it easy to remove, we are actually denying the people who are the power behind, the people who voted, to make that decision. They made the decision. I actually had an argument that said, what we are doing now, we are confused between a presidential system, whether we are presidential or we are actually parliamentary system. Yes. And that's what's going to cost us. We have to think through all these things in the Constitution.
Let's look at the story on matters, the impeachment of the governor of Kericho, before we proceed, so that you understand the gist and the charges that will be leveled against him.
Armed with at least 24 sets of evidence, ranging from video clips, affidavits, as well as a report from the Auditor General, Kericho County Assembly Monday afternoon is expected to put the final nail in the coffin of the motion to impeach County Governor Dr. Eric MUTAI at the Senate. The council representing the 31 MCAs, led by lawyer Kimutai Bosek, will have 3 hours to explain to the senators how in different occasions the governor has grossly violated not only the national but also the county laws, abused his office by illegally appointing High Court Judge Alice Bett as the county attorney, a case which was ruled as irregular by Lady Justice Wasilwa. The plenary will also hear how on his second day after being sworn in, Dr. MUTAI led a mob to invade Josiah Kogu's land and tore the fence, as well as painting Kapkatet Ward MCA Amos Birir in a negative light by describing him, and I quote, mentally blind and stupid.
Sisi tuliweza kuketi chini na tuliweza kuorodhesha yale makosa yaliweza kutokea, na hivyo ndio iweze kueleweka kwamba ule mwenyewe atakuja hapo baadaye kama yeye atarudi, ama pia niko na confidence kwamba kule bunge wataweza kusupport yale mapendekezo yetu.
The 31 MCAs who voted in favor of the motion accused Governor MUTAI of masterminding the loss of 9 million Kenyan shillings that was raised for the victims of the Londiani Junction accident that happened on the 30th of June last year.
On proponents to carry the works, Mr. Speaker.
The first-time governor will on Tuesday have a similar 3 hours to plead his case, with Katwa Kigan as the lead counsel. However, MCAs opposed to the motion who spoke to TV47 say the motion doesn't meet threshold of 2/3 as required by law.
The law protects Governor MUTAI and any other officer in this country. So that is why that requirement of 2/3 threshold must be met. So the Senate must do their work for posterity. They should not be, the Senate should not be used to settle some political scores.
All eyes are now on the Senate, as it is expected to hear a motion familiar to it, after previously hearing impeachment motions against 9 governors and 3 deputy governors. Stanley Nyeringita, TV47.
Thank you, Stanley, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's ruminate over those charges. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be able to debunk more and see what the week holds, especially for today and tomorrow. Do stay with us. You're watching The State of the Nation. We are back in a short while.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond
Back,
the
you're
limit.
watching A State of the Nation with my guest in studio, the Honorable Dr. Mumbi Ngaru, former Member of Parliament, Samuel Pogisho, former Majority Leader, former ICT Minister, Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, Kipruto Rapkiro, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us on State of the Nation. Dr. Mumbi Ngaru, when you look at the charges that we saw in our earlier report by Stanley Nyeringita, do you think then that without getting into the merits because of issues of contempt, but when you look at how the Senate has performed ever since impeachments have been brought before it, either in the previous Senate and in the current Senate, does it inspire confidence in you that they, as senators, as the Senate, they are upholding the Constitution?
George, I am not being apologetic for anything.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of respect from when the Senate started and they've been handling similar issues. They've done their best. Okay, you can pick one or two where it didn't come out clearly. The reason I say that is because once upon a time, I was in what we call local governments.
Yes.
And even from where I sit today, my question has always been, and if we want to be honest with ourselves, the charges do not start with the sitting MCAs, and even then, they never started with the councillors. But we have always had persons outside those units who happen to have their political influence and other interests. And therefore, they put the MCAs together. You never know, sometimes it's at a cost. And they are helped behind the scenes to bring the charges. Sometimes, if we didn't have those outside interests trying to control the affairs of that unit, the problems there would be sorted out in a better manner. That's a fact. And even currently, where we have had, including Kericho, we know others. Out of the 47, if you are going to list all of them and bring the charges here, they all have a similar story. So the question is, why are the others not doing it now? It's because probably the actors behind the units haven't come to bring the charges. And from where I sit, I respect the Senate because they have been able to separate those actors, political and others, even political parties, and opinion shapers of a certain unit. When it comes to, I mentioned the impeachment of the deputy president, I hold the Senate with a lot of.
We will come to the deputy president.
Okay.
Let's wind up with the governors and then shortly we come to that. Akisa, when you look at what Mheshimiwa is saying here, and then you combine with the fact that it feels like whenever a governor comes in, it's a fight not pretty much for service delivery, but to ever avoid impeachment. So, there is the working, seeming collaboration with the county assembly. There is, trying to avoid any disagreement with the county assembly to avoid an impeachment. Do you think that's the case?
Well, let me first of all start by saying that when we ushered in the Constitution of 2010, people had a lot of expectations and hope that for the first time we'll see resources being devolved, services being devolved, and therefore the mwananchi was expected to benefit out of this new, political arrangement.
Yes.
Okay, whereas before everything was controlled from the center, but at least now things were being localized. But unfortunately for Kenya, it would appear as if the same bad behavior that was seen at the central government, as it was referred to that time, was actually just devolved. We devolved poor service delivery, we devolved corruption, we devolved mismanagement, we devolved it was just a replication of what was happening in the central government. Therefore, when now you see the MCAs struggling to hold the governor to account, you can understand the magnitude of the problem that is being experienced. But my problem has never been, I'm not saying that governors have, all the governors have failed. Yesterday, Governor Kangata was on the other, a citizen.
Yes.
And he was explaining to us what he has done so far as the feeding program is concerned with kids, what he's doing with the money that he's collecting, okay? And you can see a governor who is making every attempt to serve the people who elected him. But in most cases, unfortunately, the people who have been elected, the people who have been given an opportunity to exercise leadership, have gone there with a completely different agenda, the agenda of eating. Now, it is made worse when the people who are supposed to to carry out oversight. In this case, the MCAs also have their own different agenda. Most of them, when you see them making an attempt to impeach a governor, it is not because the governor has failed. It could be that he has failed, but in most cases, the MCAs have been stopped from joining the gravy train of eating and looting public resources. But in cases where, in a county where the governor is looting and has allowed the MCAs to loot, has allowed the executive to loot, things are very quiet. So I think there's need now to give more powers to the people who elect these people to the offices to be able to recall, be it an MCA, be it a governor, be it whoever it is. I think power needs to be restored where it belongs. And this power, it's just that we don't have the architecture of dealing with these issues. But the powers to deal with elected leaders are vested in Article 1. And therefore, when citizens are dissatisfied with whatever government, at whatever level, why is it so difficult recalling this person? It is so easy voting them in. Why is it so difficult when we know that our resources are being stolen, that when we can even see that services are not being delivered? Why is it so difficult for the people who gave you, the people who delegated power to you, why is it so difficult for them to recall you? I think that's something that we actually really need to look at. I'm not saying that we should make it so easy so that we make counties or governments so unstable to govern, but there must be a mechanism that gives powers, absolute powers, to the people who gave you that mandate to call you back or to recall you back.
Kipruto, when you look at the Senate, which is sort of beginning to look like it is, it has said it will uphold integrity, uphold the Constitution, and, protect devolution. 14 years into this Constitution, in terms of attack on devolution, do you think that this then puts a stall on, what a governor would then end up saying, oh, in my first term, I was busy fighting impeachment, I was busy in the courts, that's why I was not able to even, provide services to
Well, George, there are a number of issues that I feel should be visited for us to be able to make sense out of the 2010 Constitution.
Justice Mwongo, I don't know.
One of which is the political hygiene. I strongly believe that it is not about the governor, it's not about the MCA, it's about our political hygiene. How do we treat each other normally? And how do we look at this process of devolution? Because I strongly believe that devolution was just taking bad manners from the center to the 47 counties of Kenya in such a way that I remember there was that authority that was supposed to oversee how devolution was going to be implemented. But it was very clear. We devolved resources from the center, but we did not devolve one major resource, the human resource capacity for those centers to be able to operate independent of any other authority. That creates a lot of problems. And it also makes us ask ourselves, are we allowed ourselves to have impeachment at the county level without rules of engagement? Because at the end of the day, we don't want governors to misuse resources, but we also don't want governors to feel that they are threatened by possibility of impeachment should they not be able to handle their MCAs. This is a situation that I strongly believe we must have clear rules of engagement in a way that by the time the Senate is visited with all these impeachment motions, we must have gone through a process where we feel those rules meet the threshold. Remember, in the Senate, you can either vote as the entire House, or you vote, you deal with 11 members of parliament, senators, who come with a verdict. Either you are guilty or not guilty. This makes one wonder is there any fairness where 11 people can be visited with 55 million shillings and the governor is let free? Or if the governor does not mount that amount of resources, then he is seen to be guilty or she is seen to be guilty. These are important lessons for us. The only way we can build democratic institutions is to be fair to every person, the MCA and the governor, and also to the Senate. And we hope that in future, senators will be wiser than what we see today.
Okay.
Because I strongly believe, whether it's Gachagua or Kawira Mwangasa, fairness should be seen to be done by the Senate in a way that each count must be visited with a very serious audit to understand, is this count meeting the threshold of impeachment? Or are we just misusing the resources of the nation by impeaching an individual who went through a process of election?
Yeah.
Those are some of the issues that I feel we must be very clear as a people.
Okay.
Otherwise, elections are going to be just a mere exercise to produce or not to produce an individual who will serve the people for 5 years.
Dr. Mumbi, let's now get to the impeachment of the Deputy President. And you were saying you still have confidence in the Senate to look at the charges. But for the very first time, as a country, we are facing this, mountain, this elephant in the room, which is the impeachment of a Deputy President. Even before we get to what we could be seeing in the Senate, the National Assembly has pretty much set an interesting precedence, in terms of how we saw the last week's event play out. What would you be expecting as a Kenyan, as a former legislator, to see from your colleagues in the Senate?
My view was a bit different from how it is placed in the newspapers and how we are discussing it.
Okay.
Because I think we got it wrong from the word go. The new constitution is a good document. I have faith in it, but what about the actors? The minute we watered down chapter 6 on leadership and integrity and whatever else that we are supposed to have, then we opened the gates to have people who don't care about leadership, be they MCAs, be they governors, MPs, and whatever else, including the presidency. So whatever we are dealing with now is because we disrespected chapter 6. And therefore, those in parliament have also passed through the same system that cleared the deputy president, and now they sit pretty and they become the judge. Yeah? The same with governors and their MCAs. So we are in a, I don't know, somebody called it a circus, and they were very angry. But that's what we are having. Today, if you took a bit of time to just check the new tall buildings in Nairobi, okay, plazas, tall buildings, built by governors from other counties, using county money from their counties, you will be shocked, okay? So I think we deserve what we are having, and we shouldn't complain. We just let them finish their term. We have new cherubs in town called the Gen Zs. And I can tell you they know those things that we try to hide and we apologize about. I'm being accused of being an apologist.
Yes.
And surely sometimes I feel like we've lost it. But I have faith in Senate that they could rise above the bar just to stabilize the country for the time being. And then we call out the Gen Zs in town, and they will sweep all of us. All of us. And we have new people who will have a new Kenya that we need to be proud of.
Okay.
I am, I'm in a different party, so I am not a fan, a good fan of the Deputy President. But when I look at what is happening, and I have to start from the top, there's a saying that in Nyani haoni. If you speak Kiswahili, you know that saying. So nobody is looking, no monkey is looking at its behind. And therefore, for me, the Senate should come out and tell us, excuse me, people, we are in a difficult situation. But for the sake of the country, can we do A, B, C, D? Can we call out others to hold the country together?
Okay.
I think that way we shall stabilize the country, and let's have people from all, not only the political field, that can reason to hold the country together as we wait to have new engineering, maybe other mechanics who can put the country together.
All right.
That's my take.
Mheshimiwa Pogisho, before we take your view, because I want to ask you two questions in one, let's listen to what the Deputy President said yesterday regarding the courts, because he's alluding to taking a legal process afterwards, so that we are able to debunk that.
Sunday morning, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua arrived at St. Mark Teachers Training College grounds, Kigari, Manyata, Embu County, during a church service and the 34th anniversary of the ACK Embu Diocese. Unlike his recent previous travels, the DP arrived in a private chopper and not a military one, as it has been in recent days. Apart from the DP and his spouse, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, the church barred politicians from addressing the congregation.
Irrespective ya ile tatokea, nataka kuuliza amani katika hii Embu, katika Mlima Kenya, katika Kenya nzima. Sisi tuko na nchi ya Kenya, tuna nchi nyingine. Lakini yote naendelea, sisi imani yetu ni ya kwamba Ngai aliogeteine.
In his speech, Gachagua said his hope lies in the court, perhaps signaling a lost hope in the Senate that is set to debate his fate on Wednesday and Thursday.
Tuna imani kubwa sana na mahakama zetu. Our judiciary is very professional. And I have no doubt in my mind that our eminent judges will protect and uphold the Constitution, the rule of law, and always make sure that the will of the people is sovereign. Na tukiwa, that is the way a good country runs.
The Deputy President further said that he has confidence in the judiciary in adjudicating the matter if it gets there. He said he is certain that the courts will exercise judicial authority and protect and uphold the Constitution and the will of the people.
So watu wa Kenya wako na imani sana, and they have faith that our courts of law will protect and uphold our Constitution, and most importantly, always protect the will of the people, because the people are supreme. Na tukifuata hiyo, we'll have a good country.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has called on Kenyans to remain calm and peaceful irrespective of the outcome of his trial at the Senate, which starts on Wednesday. While commending 44 members of parliament who voted against the impeachment motion, the DP encouraged leaders to listen to the people.
In a troubled day, or in the days of trouble,
when the waves are hitting against a nation, I urge you to have faith.
Only members of parliament who voted against his ouster accompanied him, led by the host MP Gitonga Mukunji, Embu Member of Parliament Pamela Njoki Njeru, Onesmus Ngogoyo of Kajiado North, James Gakuya of Embakasi North, George Koimburi of Juja, Kirinyaga Senator Kamau Murango, MCS, and former Laikipia County Member of Parliament Kate Warogoro. The Deputy President also appealed to Kenyans to pray for him and the country over the heightened political tensions after members of Parliament voted to impeach him last week. Joash Onsare, TV 47.
Mheshimiwa Pogisho, when you look at the game of numbers that exists, especially after the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, is when we started seeing the conversation on the game of numbers. And there are indeed numbers in both houses. But then there is the Deputy President speaking of legal action. Where you sit from as the former leader of majority in the Senate, do you think that there is jostling to ensure that the decision is swayed to whichever side that they want, and what options exist in law for the Deputy President after, should he be impeached?
Thank you, George. I think the Deputy President has already headed to court anyway, as we speak. I saw the lawyers are already filing there. Now, this is a situation where you want to give hope to the victim or to the person. You want to give hope. At this point, he's already wounded. He's already been impeached by one house and now heading to the next house. His hope is beyond Parliament, being that he has already seen the trends in Parliament. Even the people he thought would probably support him, when it comes to one night, only one night, the night before, he finds that they have all been swept away to one side. And that gives you the impression of what could happen in the Senate. The political parties and the parliamentary groups in the House will determine exactly what directions to go. That's why I was talking about possible independence, a few senators who can be independent, say objectively, we want to hear the charges and address them one by one and listen to them and see if they really hold water or they can be substantiated. So the hope that he has is beyond Parliament, because Parliament is one unit basically. He has seen the trends, and now you can see as what used to be the opposition party or the minority party has now become the majority. And that really complicates your chances, because how many in the ODM, for example, would be independent? How many? The only people who I think he can count on will probably be the remainder of what Azimio has been left with. And I don't know how many of those will come to. And maybe some senators from Mount Kenya who may want to stand with him, because he needs 23. And so when you do the mathematics, I'm sure it's done the math and finds that to forestall this thing, to stop the impeachment, he needs 23. And so he and these people and lawyers must have done all the maths by now, say, count heads. And I'm sure they're also not sleeping, trying to find that 23. Because you never know what happens in the courts. Your chances are still to fight in the Senate, try and find that 23, to forestall the process, or now proceed full throttle to the courts. And the courts will now start afresh, determine, the courts will have a right to look at what happened in the National Assembly and again what happens in the Senate.
Okay.
And so he has a chance if he can convince the courts, and the courts can rule differently. He should be able to then discuss the possibility of surviving. His prayers, and I like the way he put it, he told Kenyans to be calm, whatever the outcome is. He trusts God, and then he trusts our court systems. I'm not so sure that he's very confident about the courts, as he says. Because his previous life, we have seen him struggle with some of these judges, I mean, by name even. So I hope that truly our judiciary can refuse to be drawn into this thing and just work as a judiciary and act as justice, being our shield and defender, so that we have confidence that when Parliament is influenced by the political parties and the parliamentary groups, that the courts are not in any way influenced in that direction, and that they can offer justice. So he has a good chance. His option now is only either quit somewhere in the middle here, quit, or even just proceed now with, but he has said he's not going to quit. So that decision is already past us. His decision now is to go through the Senate and to go to the courts, which process has already begun. So I mean, this is he's behaving like the man going to the gallows, but he has a chance of being rescued from the gallows, political gallows. That is.
Talking about political gallows, Kisia, in politics there are no enemies or friends. It's all about interests. So I'd like you to respond in matters of, he's the deputy president who wants to save his career. He is then we are looking at a subvert relationship between him and his boss. And then if he's impeached, then taints his political career because he cannot vie again for the next 10 years. Talk to us about that, tough balance and what you are seeing at the moment.
It's a tough balance, George. But who said that being in public service overrides the fact that you, as a human being, are entitled to a fair process? So I still hold the view that what Rigathi Gachagua is being taken through is a political process. It is not a judicial process. And political processes are not all the time fair. They are there to serve a particular purpose at a particular time. Right now, those who are holding sway, those who are in power, they would want to see one Godfrey Rigathi Gachagua out and completely out and over. But if he believes in democracy, if he believes in the rule of law, if he believes in our courts, I still think that he must go full hog up to the end. Because what is the worst that can happen? What's the worst? Barring me from holding political office? Will I die because I'm not holding a political office? We have all held offices, public offices. Have we died because they're not in holding office? I think, for me, I'm hoping that the Senate, which is the upper house, will exercise fairness. We look at this issue and interrogate one by one, that they will use their wisdom as they have done in the past, that they will be impartial, that they will not be used as voting machines, and they will follow the Constitution. Don't forget that they are taking Rigiji through this process today. Tomorrow it may be then. But the most important thing that George would want us to look at.
Yes.
There is a question, and that's the elephant in the room. My senior brother, Pogisho, said that 67 members of the Senate are going to vote. But when you read Article 1, and I'm reading it as a lay person, it says that the people can exercise their authority directly or indirectly through democratically elected people, members, democratically elected. As far as I know, unless somebody changed this constitution at night and we don't know, in the Senate, we only have 47 members who are elected democratically, who have powers, sovereign powers, to exercise on behalf of the people of Kenya. So if the standing orders of the Senate allow the other people who have just been appointed, these are appointees, to sneak in and make decisions on our behalf, I'm hoping again that the courts will interrogate that and give us an interpretation. Because, it's clear. I don't have to be a lawyer to understand that it is saying that if I'm not the one who is doing it, it can only be done through a member of either the National Assembly or Parliament or county who is democratically elected. Therefore, our prayer, and I'm not holding brief for Rigiji. I don't even know him quite well, but I just know him as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Two things that very quickly I want to look at. The other thing is, people are saying that you deal with Rigiji separately and leave the boss, sitting pretty. Again, when I look at the law, if the candidate in the name of William Samoei Ruto presented himself to IEBC alone and said, I want to run alone as a president without a running mate, will he have qualified? He would not have qualified. So in my own interpretation, these two are held at the hip, and they cannot run away from each other. They are two. When you went there, you were electing two people, a president and the deputy president, okay? Finally, and which is most critical, last week, I think it was last week,
yes,
when Mutuse's motion was sent to the people who hold sovereign power, Article 1, they looked at the motion, they amended that motion to read that if we are sending this one, we must also send this one called William Ruto. They must go home together. They even added the MPs, they added the governors, they only spared the Senate. So the Senate has an opportunity to make sure that, again, they are not included in this list. Because, again, the list can be taken back to the people, they amend it to include the Senate. So I'm hoping that the Senate will use their wisdom to make decisions, not that favor the party leaders, but decisions that solely depend on our constitution.
Okay. Kipruto, when you look at the numbers in the Senate in terms of the National Assembly last week, for the very first time, was fully quorate. We could be seeing another situation, and that has been preempted, if you say, by the Speaker, who has said they should not leave town. Looking at how the itinerary looks like, and even the sufficiency of the days given to listen and hear this matter, are you inspired that the Senate will uphold its function and its role in the Constitution?
Yeah, George, there are a number of senators that have a lot of faith in. I don't want to name names. And when I see the number 23, if it was just elected senators, Rigathi Gachagua would easily get the threshold not to be impeached. But what worries me is that the rules that we are playing with are rules that we need to think through. You see, like public participation that we saw was almost done before we had Rigathi Gachagua present his case in Parliament. And therefore, one would ask, when is it that we need to do public participation? Because somebody is accused, and before we hear the other side of the story, we are now taking to the public. Now, in terms of collecting the results of the public participation and collecting the same results, did we go through the due process? Is the 66% purported to have voted against Rigathi Gachagua a truthful issue that we can hold? The answer is no, because it is very clear, even the supporters of the current president, were very clear. They did not want impeachment. I remember I saw so many clips from Baringo, from Kericho, from Nandi, from Wasingishu, where the president does come from. And they were saying, you brought Gachagua to us. We did not know him. Why should you separate midway? If there are any issues between the two of you, why don't you resolve those issues, then come to us in 2027 that it is irreconcilable for us to give that. Now, when you look at the National Assembly, you lose a lot of faith, because even some of the assertions they were making had nothing to do with the impeachment motion. Whether he has handled a family property rightly or not, that is family issue.
Yeah.
Whether he was sacked as a DO or not, that is something that they should have known before allowing him to be running mate William Ruto. So these are some of the issues that worry me, because when it is convenient, you blame somebody, you hang him, and you condemn him. Now, my request to the Deputy President is to be careful. Look at the Songo issue, look at Waititu issue. The process can easily move on Thursday and is impeached possibly at night by the Senate. Then, the same Thursday night, the President appoints a replacement for him. The following morning, it will have been gazetted because, you see, government printer is live up to midnight.
Yes.
They can easily negotiate for that issue to be gazetted, that he has been impeached, and before 9 o'clock, so that he goes to court, because you don't go to court to preempt an issue. You go to court post facto. By 9 o'clock, somebody else will have been appointed and sworn in. This is something I want him to be careful about, but I want to respectively appreciate him for going through the process.
Okay.
It may not happen again in future, because I think the future Kenya is going to be better than today. Yeah.
As we enter the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen what the newspapers are reporting on the possible names. It therefore would presumably be that indeed these conversations are happening, that there is indeed a replacement conversation going on. Starting with you, Mheshimiwa, when you look at the names, Kindiki and Waiguru, the People Daily is reporting Kindiki and Musalia Mudavadi. When you look at that jostling and agitation for replacement for Gachagua, where does this leave us as a country?
I will comment from, because I'm from the mountain.
Yes.
And I'm not changing. That's my home. I've lived there. I mix well with people from the mountain. And I don't intend to go and seek refuge in any of the counties here. I did mention in this forum that there is an attempt that is coming out clearly about isolation of the mountain. And from that point of view, I am glad to encourage the Deputy President to go the whole hog through the court process to the Supreme Court, and if there is another one beyond that, let him take it. And I know, as I say, go the whole hog, there is nothing but dragging each other through the mud. And
did you see the hostility towards some leaders who were chased out?
Yes, I am saying that because I told you I come from the mountain.
Yes.
And I have said it before. This process is just going to drag the leadership, the presidency, the parliament, the Senate, even the courts through the mud. And therefore, we are not caring about the country we have, and we all have, that we need to care. Where are we taking the country? What are we leaving to our children and grandchildren?
Yes.
But above all, is that as he drags through the process, because he's actually dragging. If you asked me, it's not about the merit and the demerit. If I were the Deputy President, I would talk very little. I still think he's overdoing it. Yeah, I think he's talking and exposing his ammunition.
Yeah.
And when I say exposing his ammunitions, is that he's already in the Senate. The Senate has released its schedule, and he is in Embu talking about faith in the
courts,
in the judiciary. And if I were the one, thank God I'm not, I wouldn't have spoken about that. So it's not about being having a fair game. So he's decided to put on gumboots to drag everybody, including me, through the mud.
Your co-panelists seem to agree. Kisia, what do you make of this, jostling and names and replacement for Gachagua?
There are no names. Forget about them. There are others that we know that belong there. I am not going to talk about the names.
Oh, okay.
But I know about 3-4 that even don't belong to the Mount Kenya region, and not even from Eastern, from Western. There are others from other places. Oh. But the media uses us, to put us in a path that makes us believe it's only those. They are not. I am from the mountain.
Kisia?
Well, George, very quickly.
Yes.
One, I think the process that we have seen, my senior brother, Kirwa, talked about public participation, that people are given a chance. This was a replay of Mulolongo.
Yeah.
Because we all saw the queues that were long.
Lucy.
We saw. We are not blind. And even if you are blind, we had. And people are saying that they don't agree. But when the results were brought to Parliament, it was a Mulolongo thing. The long queue was converted to a shorter queue.
Yeah.
So it was actually a flawed process. But let me talk about now the possible replacement should Rigiji be thrown out of the office. You must look at the character of the boss. Who is able to work with this boss called William Samoei Arap Ruto?
Yes.
From all the names that have been mentioned, and I'm not saying because I know this gentleman, I am saying because I think his character can fit into the character of William Samoei Ruto. Because one, he is not overly ambitious. Two, he's a gentleman. Three, is somebody who is very careful, he listens. Four, is somebody who Ruto respects. He's somebody who will not want to overshine the boss. He's somebody who would want to advise the boss behind the scenes. And from all the names that have been mentioned, I think the son of Hannah, in the name of Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, would fit the bill.
Okay.
And I'm not saying because I know him, but I'm just looking at the situation and finding out who can stabilize, who is able to stabilize the current political instability that we have. But in closing, because I know we are running out of time.
Yes.
Kenyans, careful. Kenyans, careful. These are diversionary tactics to get our eyes off the ball. It's about stealing our resources. It's about giving away our airports. It's about giving away our ports. It's about them stealing. It is about them doing all the things that don't benefit our country. It's about them buying a system for 104 billion when we know that even the most reputable banks have bought systems for $20 million. Here are people, mercenaries, who are asking us to allow them to procure a system for close to $80 million. Shame on you.
Kipruto, we'll come to you. Kipruto, when you look even at the whole issue of even IEBC reconstitution with the looming impeachment of a deputy president, there are some who have argued we cannot have, the IEBC would need to nominate the DP. Where does this leave even the nomination and the jostling of names and recommendations from different quarters?
Well, the whole process, George, is flawed. And I think it is good because even if Rigathi Gachagua is impeached,
yes,
and will not be able to hold public office, there is still a lacuna in the law that may allow him in future to do an appeal against the verdict of the court. And that, to me, gives us a lot of solace. But just allow me also to visit the names. There are only 3 names. And if William Ruto diverts from those names, will have almost spelled a political disaster for himself come the year 2027. From the mountain, there is only one young man from Murang'a, Ndindi Nyoro. That's the only person who can stabilize emotions at the mountain level and be able to create some semblance of unity between the two communities, the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu. The other name is Musalia Mudavadi, and therefore switch the position of Musalia to give to Kindiki. The final name, which will stabilize him for the balance of the time, is that of Raila Odinga. You should have the courage to tell Raila Odinga, move from the AU because you are not winning, be my deputy president for the balance of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Pogisha, you get the last word.
Yes, and just to wish Eric MUTAI, I mean, that is the guy who needs our prayers actually, because first of all, he comes from the ruling party, he comes from the right part of the country, but he's being impeached. That says volumes for him, so he needs a lot of prayers. And for DP Gachagua, it is true. The only savior here is the courts. And let's hope for the best.
Indeed. Let's hope for the best. You've been watching The State of the Nation. Thank you so much for your splendid company. I've been speaking to the Honorable Dr. Mumbingaro. Thank you so much for joining us. Honorable Samuel Pogisha, thank you also for joining us.
Thank you.
As well as Kipruto